Hey y'all, so my garden gave me several of these perfectly sized pumpkins to puree and make lovely pies, pumpkin bread, cookies. My favorite is probably a type of cookie. I just call it pumpkin bread cookies. So I'm going to make me some homemade puree today. And I thought you might like to come along if you've never done this, but you have a garden that sometimes give you some smaller pumpkins. You may want to learn how to do this. Let's go make some puree. Okay, so to start out, you're going to want to set your oven to 400 degrees. Now, why 400 degrees? Because something fun starts to happen when things are that high for baking your pumpkins versus, say, if you were doing it on the stove top, steaming it, or in a crock pot or something like that. At 400 degrees in the oven, things will start to caramelize a little bit, just making that puree that much more delicious and tasteful. While our oven's warming, let's look at what else you'll need. You'll need a piece of parchment paper to cover a baking pan, big enough to deal with the pumpkin that you have. You may want a bigger piece of parchment or a bigger baking sheet if you have more than one pumpkin that you're doing to puree. You need your pumpkin, your cutting board, and a nice sharp knife. Okay, now I'm going to start out by very simply cutting my pumpkin in half. This isn't a perfect science. You just want to do the best that you can. I find it easier to poke my knife down into the pumpkin like that and then work it down the side, like so. Now you don't need to bother about removing this little stem or anything because, as you can see, it doesn't bother anything. So here's your nice cut pieces of pumpkin. And we don't need to scoop this stuff out yet. Okay, so we can save, if you want to save seeds, I would recommend scooping it out already. I would just take your pumpkin like this and I would place it face down on your parchment paper, which will keep it from sticking. Okay, and you're going to go ahead and put that in your oven at 400 degrees for about, now if I had two of these pumpkins, I'd be doing this close to an hour, like 45 to 50 minutes. I've only got one, so I think I'll start at about 35 minutes and just see if we're done in time. You'll need to test it with a fork. Oh, one thing first. This is a good idea. Put a couple slats in the back of your pumpkin. This will help some steam get into the pumpkin flesh. Okay? It will just help it cook easier, that's all. Okay, now we're going to put this in the oven at 400 degrees for about 35 minutes, and let's see what that gets us. Next, we can get our blender ready. I'm going to use my Vitamix blender here, and I've got it taken off of its base, and it's right here where I can easily scoop my pumpkin meat into the blender as soon as it's done baking. Okay, so here's our lovely baked pumpkin. It smells so good. You can see a lot of the juices there all around it. And we have stuck a fork into it and it runs through real easy. This is super moist, ready to scoop out once it cools down. So we're going to give that a little bit of time to cool down, and then we'll come back to this. So I'd say you're going to need at least probably 20 to 30 minutes for it to cool. You can use it right away, but of course it's going to be hot and that will make it a little more difficult to handle. If you wish, you can go ahead and turn them over. I used a spoon to help me with that over here, just sort of sliding underneath, and scoop the seeds out already. They're over here. So you can keep those to roast or to throw them out. It is easier to scoop the insides out of these pumpkins after they have already cooked. It was super easy to do. But turning it over and scooping it out, you can see how hot those are. I don't know if you guys can see the steam coming off of these pumpkin halves that have been baked in the oven, but this will help them cool down quicker to turn them over like that. You don't have to do this, but if you're in a hurry, you want it to go quicker, you can do this. Put this now in the refrigerator, or even package some up for your freezer. It will freeze wonderfully. Okay, so that's how you do your pumpkin puree. Now, one note: pumpkin puree is not the same as pumpkin pie filling that you might buy in the can at the store. So this video is for those of us who are wanting to make our own homemade pumpkin puree, but realize this is not the same as pumpkin pie filling. Pumpkin pie filling has sugar and pumpkin pie spices added to it, okay? And pumpkin puree does not. Thank you so much for being here and making this pumpkin puree with me. Let's just hold it up again for y'all to see. Oh, it's just lovely. Like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.